Hugo is a lifelong creator who's built, lost, and rebuilt more than once. This episode dives into integrity, failure, Burning Man, music, and what it really means to create from zero. You have worked in construction, you've worked in real estate, you've been on a global board for EO, and you have a DJ project now. I'm curious, what drives you and what helps make the decisions in what you decide to work on a daily basis?
What to work on a daily basis is very interesting because I always trying to adapt to my agenda, what is important, what is not important. So through time, I always have been changing that, right? Something that sometimes, as you said, several business, like I believe I love to create. That's something that it took me maybe until 2018 I understand it. At the beginning I didn't know. What did you ask me this question before 2018 I would never answer it. But after 2018 I understand that I love to have an idea or to listen to someone from an idea, to put it on paper, to work on it, and then to create it. And then after create it, to give it or to sell it. And then start again. And that process, I think is something that I like. And let me take you back a little bit. At the beginning, I didn't know if I wanted to be an entrepreneur or not. Something that I always, when I was in university, I saw and I said, okay, it's nice to create, to have your own company. But in that time, I look at because I said, I want to have time. Then later on, you find out that it's not that you have more time. Sometimes you have less time at the beginning, especially when you are creating. Right? Maybe later on you can have it, but at the beginning it's not that easy. So at first I started working in a company. Then after 2 years working in that company in sales, a friend called me and said, hey, come on, man, let's start doing a .com. It was around 2000. We went to create a .com. It was tuexperto.com, yourexpert.com in English. And it was more like to hire someone that can answer questions to you. That was the model in that time. So we get like $600,000. We spent it in 13 months and we couldn't continue. We didn't sell the .com. We didn't put it in action very well. So it was something that we learned. And after that, I went to develop houses. And that's when I was very interested because every time that we create a new place to create the houses, a new project, we started from zero, but also came like a brand. So it was something that I learned. I said, oh man, I like to create also the brand. Like every place has a different name. So we put it a different name. It was also the creation of that brand for that little place. So later on in life, I started doing that. Then we started doing one colleague came and said, hey, I want to have a testing lab material for construction. And I said, what is that, man? No, but it's something, it's like my dream. So I helped this guy to start that business. Later on in 2013, I got that business to myself. And we started creating, and we changed it from the testing lab material. I said, let's change it to a supervision company. So we start adding things. One more time, creating more things to the same basics, right? And during that time also, we started doing like dry cleaners. It was my first time that I said, hey, they're selling these dry cleaners. And I said, oh, I had never buy a business. Let's do it. So that's why my experience trying to get that business on March. So to understand how to get it. So we bought it. We bought 7 and then we had another 7. So we create all that brand and it was always creating all the brand from system. And it wasn't until 2018 that I understand that I like this. It was another experience about creating. It was in 2012, 2013. One of my teachers in DJ, they have a business in downtown Monterrey. But in that time, it was very insecure to continue having business there. So he closed and he said, hey, what am I gonna do, man? And I said, oh, let's be creative. Let's see what are your abilities. So he said, you can be a teacher, you can sell equipment, you can do parties, you can do a lot of things. So I helped him to create House of DJ. He was another project, another brand. And then that was in 2012. He continued doing that for his business. And he's a very good partner for me. And that was another way that I started something that I loved, that was music. It was until 2023 that I said after coming from Burning Man, I said, hey man, I need to start something new. Because in 2012, I didn't start like a new business. But in this time, I said, something that I'm very passionate about it. And it was about music. And then that's why I started the new project, like in 2003 to now. And doing all that time, man, I have time to be in POL, that it means Paddle Leadership in EO. In EO, as you know, I've been there from 2005. And it was until 2010 that I went to the POL and I started learning and trying to give something back to the organization. Why? Because the organization was giving a lot to me. It was giving me a lot of education. I was able to travel. And I said, how can I give back to the organization? So I started helping the organization, becoming a leader. And that took me until I was in the global board. That it was a great experience for the last 3 years.
So much to dive into there. Super interesting. Yeah.
That's a little bit.
I find it really interesting that you say in 2018 you determined, or you found that you just love to create. That's when you found that you love to create. But when you're describing it, you were using the word create the entire time, creating a brand, creating a product from 2005 onwards. What was it that shifted in 2018 that made you realize that, like, I actually just love to create?
I think in 2018 happens for me, it's like one of my break points in life, right? Like in 2009, I started the 9 years of darkness for me, that I call it right now, going back from 2018 to 2009. In that time, I lose my business, right? And it was in a way not only because it was a bad business, it's because my partners that were there, I couldn't continue, so they took the business out. So for me, I thought I was lose everything in life because I lose money. Then realized that it was not, but that take me to a lot of things when you lose your faith in you. And I believe when I lose my faith in myself, it was very, very bad, because I started talking to myself very bad. I started doing a lot of things, like a lot of alcohol, a lot of party. I was doing a lot of taking decisions not very good, because I didn't understand what was happening to me. It wasn't until 2015 that I decided to go to therapy. And I said, okay, now let's start working on me. And in 2018, it was like, for me, I went to Burning Man for my first time. I went to the temple and I stayed there maybe 3 hours and a half, in between meditation, between crying, between analyzing. And for me, it was like where I disintegrate myself and integrate myself. And that's when I started saying, okay, what do you love? Right? What had been your looking like an analysis of your life, right? And I started looking what I had been doing. Okay, I start this business and we put it a brand. I start this real estate project and we put it a brand, and then another one, and then this, and then, okay, how many brands do you have? Like 7. Okay. So why do you have 7 brands? And why some of them, they are continue as a business, otherwise they were only projects, but everything was branding. So I said, oh, that's interesting. And then looking at Burning Man that everybody was creating and giving, that's when I start connecting, okay, if you want to go back, where can you flow as a guy? Where do you flow the best? It was creating that part to say, okay, create an idea, put it on paper, create it and give it. And that was also the connection with Burning Man. And that's what I learned. I learned that I was doing that in the last years and I didn't notice. It was only like, the universe sent you some message, and that's the first time I got it. And I said, okay, now I got it. So now I do it consciously. Before that, I was doing only, I don't know why, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, fair enough.
I'd say I was only working on that.
Yeah, it's interesting that you can follow a path but not really know why for years and years later, right? Until something clicks, whether it be a catalyst of whatever, like in your case, Burning Man. I want to talk about Burning Man, but before, you mentioned in 2015 you started therapy, and that's a big step for a lot of people, right? It's there's a bit of ego involved typically, and there's some there's just the way that people perceive therapy and help and that sort of thing, especially in those days. I think now it's a little bit more widely understood that everybody can benefit. But at that time, it must have taken some balls to do that, I assume.
Balls and and to accept that you were in your lowest point, right? To say, wow, man, it cannot be possible that everything, when you start blaming other people all the time, oh, I'm here because of them. And I believe that was one of the things that was happening in that time. No, my partners, no, my employees, no, my wife, no, oh, everybody's crazy unless me. So when I connect that dots in my mind, I said, okay, what happened? What happened with me, right? So I start saying, okay, I cannot do it by myself. Let me ask for help. And that's why when I went to say, okay, let's do something. Who can help me? This is the second time I was asking for help in that way. The first time was in 2009 when everything started. In that way, I didn't went for therapy, but my spiritual part was more like energy. And I said, okay, I'm going to go with someone that can heal my aura and everything. So I went to that underworld, right? Looking for something to heal me, because in that moment I was waking in the night, shaking. I couldn't sleep. I was very bad emotionally. So in that way, I started working with Reiki. I become a Reiki teacher. I began doing massage. I was trying to connect with something, and it helped me, but I didn't finish the process. It was only part of the process. So that the system continued. So I believe then therapy helped me with my mind. In everything that I start connecting then later in life is like when I start doing alchemy, I understand that body, mind, and soul. And that's also something that happened between 2018 and 19 that I said, okay, let me study a little bit of alchemy. What happened? And understanding how, as a human beings, we got separated since Renaissance, more or less in that age, when we said we are the center of the universe. I believe we fuck up the world, because in that part we separate everyone. So they give you a medicine, but they don't heal you your soul. They give you like a massage, but they don't teach you about your mind. So in that way, after connecting your body, your mind, your soul, I start working on everything on myself. So therapy was, for me, the part to work on my mind for myself. And after that, I believe right now I find out how bad I start talking for those years to myself. That's why I lose all my confidence. Because what happened when I lose my business, I thought I was loose. So I was always like talking very bad to myself, very bad. And when I saw it, I started crying a lot, man. It was a moment of to say, wow, man, I don't need enemies. My only enemy is myself, man. So that's when I started changing that part. That's therapy part of the process. Right now, in this moment, I'm not going for therapy, but I always tell to my therapist, okay, it's like a Netflix series, man. We came from season 1, season 2, season 3, but I have not come back until right now. But I go back when I believe I need it, and I believe a lot on that.
Mm. You mentioned in there that you recognized that you lost your confidence at somewhere along the way, and as a result of losing your business. Is that because your identity was tied into your business?
No, I believe it was like, sometimes I tell people like, you remember when you were a kid and you believed that your car, when you were a kid and you said, this is my car and this is everything in life, right? Then later on in life, you start laughing. Somebody go and take you a car, your car, you can take it when you are 7. But in 3 years, it was everything for you. In this time, what happened, it was like, my partners were my best friend and his dad. And the business is not we lose it because the business went to broke. No, I lose it because they took me out of the partnership. So it was like something that I love. I love those guys. It was like my family for me. And I said, wow, man. So I lose my money. So I lose my friends and I lose everything in that moment. In that moment for me was everything. Then my wife, 3 months, 4 months later, he said, I'm pregnant. I said, what the fuck, man? Really? Now I don't have a business. I don't have money. Try thinking that I didn't have it. That's why it was very impactful for me. And it was like a betrayal. So I lose confidence on myself and losing confidence on people in that way. And I said, okay, this is what happened to me in that point.
You mentioned alchemy, and I find that really fascinating. And transparently, I don't understand a lot of it. And I assume the audience probably needs that gap filled as well. So explain to me what you mean by alchemy.
Alchemy, we can go to a very extended explanation. I will keep it simple. First, it started like when they start saying that how can you change a material to gold in those times? But then later on, starting what I understand is how can you change yourself, right, in alchemy? And in the way that you can go very extensive on the philosophy. Sometimes I'm very practical and try to get the best of every philosophy very short. It's connecting your body, your soul, and your mind. That for me is alchemy. How can you transform yourself? Anything that you can transform, the energy, you transform it with all your mind, your soul, and your body. That's for me, that's alchemy. That's the way I see it in my life. And that's the way of reading several books. That was my learning. Very practical, man. Being connecting and then looking at me as transforming myself, right? Because something that is beautiful is like when you start transforming yourself, the energy that happens around you is change everything. And it's not about them, it's about you. It's always about you. So it has been that has been my learning very specific to go back again to myself.
So the final stage of this process for you, of this 9-year process, was the Burning Man experience, correct?
Yes. More than finish, I think that's the beginning. That 9 years of darkness that I said, it was the finish of those, realizing that the light was there, man. It was only to walk 3 steps and that was there. And I was never had the balls, or my process was in that. I believe the universe sent me a lot of messages. And I didn't listen to them. Or my ego was too hard, or I was heartbroken, I don't know. But I never listened to it until I started feeling free for myself, for my mind. My ego went down. So I started listening to the universe. I started walking on that.
So what was that prompt that made you go to Burning Man in the first place? Because your first time was in 2018?
Yes. Mm-hmm. In 2000, I have a friend, in 1999, to be exactly, I remember a friend from Monterrey say, hey, man, I just went to a place in Nevada that it was a party, and it was very good. There was a great music, and we were doing a lot of bonfires, and it was all fire and everything like that. And it was super interesting. And I said, okay, let's go next year. Yes, I'm going to call you in February, and let's go in 2000. So he called me in February, and he said, hey, I'm not going this year. Okay. And after that, I didn't know the name of the project. I didn't know. I only remember a guy telling me. So it was in 2015 that I went to an event of EO in Lake Tahoe. I remember Lake Tahoe, yes. And there was a guy, Tilio, that now is the leader of the camp and a very good friend. And he was there, and we were doing like a president meeting about several areas. And he came out with a red trunk. Hey, Burning Man. And I said, what the fuck is that, man? And I went there and I asked questions about it. And he showed me about a brochure. And I saw it. And then I started Googling. And I said, wow, man, this is the same thing that happened for me in 1999. But it continued. And when I look at it and I see what was happening, already 60,000 people in the desert creating a city, I said, one day I'm going to be there. So next year, he said, hey, come on, go with me. I said, man, I can't. It was in those days, right? And I said, no, I can't, man. My business is very consuming. I cannot do it. 16, I can. 17, I can, man. Until in December of 2007, I said, next year, I'm going to do it. And that's how I went there in 2008. It took me like 3 years to get there. So sometimes I said, if you like something, if you know something, don't continue. Maybe you're not going to do it in 1 year, 2 or 3, but you're going to do it someday. And that's an example for me to go into Burning Man.
In hindsight, do you wish you went and you didn't say no 3 times? Or do you think that was part of the process?
It was part of the process, man. Right now, having this conversation, you and me, I can tell you that. And just like 3 days ago, I was reading something about that, right? Like the flow, right? How did you flow? How every time you start pushing something that you want, it's only because you want it. And it's not going to come with that. So every time I'm starting to be more calm and to flow with the system. Because at the end, the path is there, man. Just try to continue. And the things are going to come when you need it, not when you want it. so that when you need it, it's going to come and come and come. So that's why I believe that was my time to go there.
So you go to Burning Man, you have this revelation, if you will, of rediscovery, I suppose. And then what changes when you get back?
What changes? The first years, I always tell people, it's like when you get out of the parachute for the first time, when you jump, the first 45 seconds in your life of jumping from a plane is very fast. You don't get it. And then when you go back again and do it, those 45 seconds is like 20. And when you do it again until you start understanding that now you are in the path. Okay, now you can start looking, you're nervous, so you can have the ability to see, to look for it. I believe Burning Man the first time, it was very fast. We went there, we started creating the camp, we party, we went to the temple. I didn't know about the temple that was there. I remember in my first day, one guy told me, do this. The first day they opened the temple, go there, and go the last day. And that was a beautiful tip that they gave me, because I learned how can you create a building, but then you can see how a building that is all the people riding in the temple, when they lose someone, and trying to forgive, people crying there about their self or somebody that left this world, the energy was fucking amazing, man. I said, wow, man, it was blown out my brain. So that was my first year, was very fast. And then you're going to listen a lot about decompression. And what I learned through time about decompression after that is like, imagine that you go all the time to your house, to your office. So you always walk the same path. So your eyes and your brain always see the same. So you don't have new data. So imagine there, walking every day, everything is different every day. And then at the last day, everything disappears. So it's a lot of data, new data everywhere you go. So then you need time to decompress all that information, because when you go to the real world, it's different, right? So my first year was very quickly. I didn't understand anything. The only thing that I knew is that I had that meditation. That was when I came, that I changed, that I look myself, that I can disintegrate, and I said, I'm going to integrate myself. And for the next years, I said, I'm going to continue coming because of this. So for me, like Burning Man is like my last, like a lot of people do in New Year's Eve. I'm going to do this, the next year I'm going to change. For me, it's Burning Man. Like I burned myself there, I started, I said, okay, what I'm going to change. And that's how it started. Later on, I started understanding a lot of things in a different way.
I think the general public, at least those who have heard about Burning Man, understand that it's a transformational experience from the outside looking in, right? But I think, and personally, I've never been. It's always been of interest to me. But
Let's go, man.
Yeah, I would love to. Let's do it. Yeah, absolutely. Next September.
You're going to love it.
Yeah. But can you help me and the audience understand what is it about is it the physical place? Is it the energy of the people? What is it about that experience that makes it so unique and makes it so transformational for everybody that goes?
It's a very good question, because I cannot talk for everyone. I'm going to tell from my personal experience and what I believe and what I like, right? What I like a lot is the process of creating, one more time, the camp, giving it. And at the end of several days that you are there, everybody goes there, and I like to do this analogy, it's like everybody's in the same frequency, or 95% of the people, right? Because not everybody, but let's see 95% is in the same frequency. You don't have nothing to do. Only go, learn, go to take a class, go to dance, go to listen to music, go to meet friends. Whatever you want to do, just do it. You're free for time. You don't have nothing to do. You don't have a cell phone. You cannot connect to the real world, so you are there. So sometimes you said, hey, what do we do? Whatever we want to do. And I believe having that mindset for everyone, that creates a space for frequency for everyone to be like that, right? And then creating. Going there and see artists that they had been doing art for 2 years, and if it would, they burn it after that. That for me is wow, man. But then later on is the reminder of life. You are always creating your life. And I remember one time going to Nepal with a friend, and he said, "Hey man, where are you coming from, man?" "I'm coming from Birmingham." "I mean, what the fuck are you doing there, man?" "Well, what were you doing the last week?" "Oh, I was 10 days in a silence retreat." And I said, "What the fuck are you doing there?" "Ha ha ha, we were talking about that, right?" And I said, "Okay, you were in silence, yeah? You were transforming yourself in this way. Well, I was here with a lot of learning people, going to talks, talking about energy, etc. So we were transforming." And he said, "Why do you love that?" "Because I love how I can create a camp, working to see people creating, and at the end, everything disappear, man. That's fucking amazing, man. That's incredible, man. That's incredible." And he said to me, "Well, man, that's life. And I can tell you, my monks here, you see that they're always doing with sand those mandalas, and they take like a month, and at the end, they brush it all away. It's to remind you that you create a life, and at the end, everything disappears." And with that, you see, my chick was, I said, "Wow, man, this is fucking amazing." That's when the connection for me with Burning Man connect with all my life. I said, now I understand what is happening every year that we come here to remind us that everything is gonna end. And it has been that part very profound to me to see it and to know that. And it's like a reminder every year about life. That's how I see it, and that's why I love it. And that's why I always come, like I can tell you an experience. This last burn, it was trust. The word that came out, it was trust, and then the universe was saying trust. And I went to see a talk about a person that helped us to reconnect ourselves, and it was trust. And then a girl came and said, "Hey, take a card." And I took a card and said, "Forget about your dad, trust yourself." And then another people, "Trust yourself." So at the end, in different places, it was all trust. So every time I go, there's something that I connect with a word, maybe that I wanted or my subconscious needed, and I start connecting with that. That's why I go back. And a lot of people, I believe, with some of my friends that we talk about this, everybody in their personal way, to be alone, to be there, to be in something that you don't know what you're going to expect, a storm, and you can be there for 3 hours with a storm of very strong, and you are there without moving, and start putting yourself in not in a comfortable way that you are. You're always uncomfortable. So if people don't like to be uncomfortable, don't go there.
Yeah. You're in a vulnerable state, right? You're succumbed to the elements, the weather, the frequency, as you mentioned, which I find really interesting. I love that description that you gave. It makes perfect sense, and it kind of aligns a lot of things that everybody talks about. You said people are on a 95% frequency, right? That's the number you're using. If you were just to kind of make a comparison, if you were to compare the frequency at a 95% rate, that everybody's at 95%, the same rather, at burn, what would it be in like a city? You know what I mean? Like what's the percentage that people are at on the same frequency, do you think, in a city?
In the real world, in a city, I don't know. I believe like there are different layers of frequencies, and maybe to get all together, it would be very hard. Maybe there are several in 10, 20%, right? So you have like 5 different frequencies around the city, right? And because, like an example, you can go with these people because the way of money they do, education, a lot of things that they can vibrate in different frequencies, right? At least here you have 70 people with several education, with several things, more of them, right? More or less, you have like a standard in a way of education, of people looking at the end, the same intention to become better. And in the real life, not everybody is looking to get better, all right? Sometimes people is only trying to survive. What can I eat tomorrow? So when you are not covering the basics, so your energy is different. And how many people do we have here? A lot. And in different countries. So you have that brand, and then you have the people that already went to the university, that are making money. You have a lot of different groups, not all with the same intention. I think that intention, and also living the 10 principles, they're like a gifting that you know that in Burning there's no money. So one of the things we all go give, we give. And learning of giving, right? The way of giving, for me as a giver, I learned in one time that I went to a camp and the guy said, hey, take anything you want. Okay. And then I took some classes. It was my second year. I took some classes, but I saw that I didn't have a scarf. And I said, I want it, but it's only one thing. And he said, take anything you want. And nobody told me that, man. It was my mind that why I didn't know how to take, right? So it was a learning. So one of the principles is gifting, and you give without expecting that somebody will give you something the same size or nothing. So those are the kinds of things. Imagine here that you can go to my house and, hey, have water. If somebody's walking and doesn't have, come on, man, I give you lunch. Come on. We don't do that in there. That's not the intention in the real world.
Mm-hmm. How do we make, because it sounds so beautiful the way you describe it, right? This way of living that's so like based, like organic, natural, not forced, I suppose. Do you think that can translate to the broader, to the outside world, if you will? And should it, or should it stay?
It's a very good question, and I don't know if I'm prepared to answer that. Maybe from my experience, I believe we can take it, and I believe a lot of principles I take it back home, and I try to live them until I can't, right? At the end, giving, if I can give, and that's okay, man. It doesn't, sometimes people say, why you give that? Just give it. Like I think that's a principle that we can do, right? And all the system working, I don't know. I think it should, sometimes people say it has to be that way. I don't know if it has to be that way. That community for that week works like that. I don't know what happened if they leave us 1 year, what will happen? I don't know, man. That's something. But at the end, I believe everybody that goes, or most of the people, not everyone, most of the people go back home with a lot of learning inside. And there's a lot of people that will go there one time and say, I don't want to come back again, man. And that's also good, man.
Is this where you fell in love with music as well? Or was your love for music established far before the burn?
No, music for me was like, since I was a kid, I always do it. I just transformed from heavy metal to electronic music. That was only the shift that I made. But I always was doing music. For me, the connection with music came when I was a kid. I started playing drums, and I went to become a drummer. And that was one of the first time that when I came here, I was 16 years old. I came from a little town from Matamoros to Monterrey. That is 3 hours and a half from here. So I came here at 16. And then I remember my dad always saying, hey, man, if you want to do something in life, be the best. If you want to have a taco place, be the best taco. You want to choose, do it. So I said to him, I was a skateboarder, so I was buying the skateboarding Transworld magazine, and there was Berkeley in one of the pages, and I said, wow, man, I want to go there. And I went and I sent them in that time a letter, and I received the information to apply. And then I went to my dad and I said, I want to be a drummer. And he said, fuck you, man, you're not going to be a drummer, man. He gave me a guitar and said, come on, sing it, the Mañanitas, the birthday song. And I said, hey, man, there's a fucking guitar, man. I'm a drummer. I said, no, man, stop doing that shit and study, please. We are doing a lot of effort to have you there in Monterrey to study, so do it. So I think that's when I become in love. What happened after that, I block it. Because one of the things that my dad said, hey, you are not able, your ear is not good to be a musician. And after that, my mind blocked it. And it wasn't until 2018 in Burning Man that I opened it. I was practicing in 2005. I was DJ in my house, putting hours, I don't know, maybe 1 hour a week I was more worse. And then from 2008, 9 to 18, maybe 0 hours. I was trying by myself, surviving myself, or trying to do other things. It was in 2018 that I connected, and I said, I'm going to start one more time with the music. And that's when I started playing a little bit more in my room. That's why the last project is about creating a cabin or place, so the people that we are like a DJ of room, they can have an opportunity to go there, to rent a space where it's a great sound and everything, so they can invite their friends and play. So that's why I started creating that, because from 2018 I started only playing in my room.
So you created this brand out of this business out of necessity for yourself. You created what you would have wanted in that time frame.
Yes, you can say that. That's a good explanation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I say, how can you share your, like here, maybe you can have a party right now in this room, but how nobody's gonna leave it. I remember my dad in that time, they say you can only play at this time of the hour of the day that your drums, that there is nobody here, right? So I see a lot of people that they play in the rooms, but with a little equipment, they don't put the sound, and they don't feel it, the sound. Because something is here, but then feel it with a good bass and everything, that's another story, right? And that's why I wanted to create, so that people can have that opportunity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I'm also a drummer, and so it's funny because I had a relatively similar experience. You know, drums are extremely loud. Some instruments you can play directly into your ears or whatever the case. That's not really possible with drums. Even electronic kits, which I have now, you know, it sucks to play into your ears, right? It's
Yes.
no fun. It's different.
And also, I remember those things that when you hear it, it's very different, right? But it's different, tick, tick, tick.
Yes.
But the feeling is very different.
Exactly. Yeah.
But you can practice.
Yeah, you can. Absolutely. Did Monterrey need the studio that you've created? Was there anything like it that existed previously, or no?
We have it like as I told you, with my partner, Household DJ. We have like a house with 4 cabins, but it was a cabin very small, and it was not creating the experience, right? Like what I wanted to create here, it was create all the experience, to have the best equipment, a very good sound, and a space so people can dance. That was the upgrade of the cabin. And I went to Germany, and 2023, exactly in that summer, and there's a pirate.com, there's a people doing that, right? They have more than 800 rooms like that. But at the end, it was only like a cabin, like a real room. Here, what I tried to do was a more space so you can have people dancing there. That was the only mindset. You know that in life, you find everything exists, right? It's nothing new. It's only creating a different atmosphere and a different way to do it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I think, like, I mean, from the electronic music scene perspective, it's completely different, obviously, as you know, to play in your room in your headphones in a small space with, and then it's another whole entirely different thing to play with people dancing and lights and sound and all of these different things.
Yes.
Why is that experience important for people?
I think it's to show yourself to something in life, to be able to go there and say, hey, I can play something, or I can give a speech. Let's try it, man. Helping you to be there in front of a camera also. Like, remember the first time we recorded, because we record the people so we can give it back to them so they can have material for their web pages. People that have been playing a lot and sometimes putting a camera only is a different experience. So I think that when we as ourselves, we go out and you say, okay, can you go and make an interview? Let's do it. So it's that way to push yourself to see what can you do. That's why I believe they need to go out, because at the end, you never know. At the end, you're playing for yourselves and you like it, but maybe you can share that experience, or you can share that ability you have, or that beautiful art that you're doing to everyone. And that's why I believe it's important that people can go and show their art, their music, their sculpture, or anything, a place. Sometimes you have people that have doing a sculpture in the room. Why don't you go and put it somewhere? Where can you put it?
Mm-hmm. You said you're in year 1 of the project and you've given yourself a 3-year timeline.
Yeah.
What is the vision?
My vision is first to understand this project. And this project has been evolutionating to something I didn't know. First, it was only like I told you, the cabin. I have it, all the written paper is like that. But I think something that happened during the project, I said, I came from Berlin, I hired some architects and I said, hey, let's do like a subway from Berlin and let's put the wall of Berlin, doing the space and everything. So we start working on that project for August, September, October. We finished the first model in November, and we were going to start to do all the remodeling. And in that time, the owner of that space said, hey, I have another space. Do you want it? And it took me like 15 days thinking about it because it was a double rent, a double investment in the remodeling and everything, and another different way, right? So I said, oh, man, what am I going to do? Do I get it or not get it? And I said, okay, if I already started, let's do it. So I opened another space so it becomes bigger. So to having a 10, 15 people, now we have a dance floor for 15 people. So that was something very interesting when you have an idea and you don't have an end. And I said, okay, let's flow. Let's continue what happened. So at the beginning, it was the dance floor. Now we have a dance floor. Now we are doing parties every month. Now we are bringing DJs, something I didn't think about it. So now I need to learn how to hire DJs and bring it. Now I need the license of alcohol, but now I need it only, they cannot give it as a bar. So it has to be a restaurant bar. So now we are creating a menu so I can have and ask for the license. So the project in that way is moving. My real project of the cabins is there. But I said in time, I stop it. From here, it came out a new brand that is called EO01, that is input-output EO, zeros to one. So how can we create from the input and output, we put it in the streaming. So we create a YouTube channel, something I didn't think about it. And then we start recording, and then we have right now more than 170 videos of the local DJs doing something, giving back to the community. So everything has been evolving very fast in a different way. But now this brand, EO01, I believe people already know it right here, around here. So now I think it's time to do something with the other brand. So in one project, we have two brands, two different projects, one little baby in a different way. That learning about it, I said, okay, let's take it to another city. One of the ideas we have is to take it to Guadalajara. Why Guadalajara? Because the electronic scene is better than in Monterrey. It has more electronic music. Also, it's not Mexico City, that is another big city, another competition. So I said, okay, let's take it to Guadalajara, and also because I have friends there that also they are DJs from closet or room. So I said, okay, let's bring that. So the idea is to continue evolving. As an industrial engineer, we're doing everything in process. So I believe maybe in 6-8 months, we can have all documented how to create that in another city.
Wow. So now it's process.
That's process.
Yeah.
I believe that's the way we're going. Let's see what happens. Because every day, everything changed, man.
I love the idea of leaning into the flow. You talk about this idea of flow, which is, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like it's like, obviously you have an end goal, kind of, but it's loose, right? It's like, it's more of a vision, and then the building blocks are kind of created as you go.
Yeah. Yeah. This project has been like that, man.
Yeah.
And I believe doing it in that way, it's more fun. Sometimes it gets what are we doing? Where are we going? And sometimes it's like life, where I'm going, I don't know, but okay, follow the people that is coming. Okay, we have more, and looking at the big little steps, right? We now have 540, 150, I don't know, subscription in YouTube. It's good or not, I don't know, man, but we have 500. Mm-hmm. Maybe in a year we're gonna have 1,000. Mm-hmm. So looking at those little steps in everything is nice, man. I think that's the thing that for my team, they believe on that. We are already in the team 8 people, in different ways. Now we have a chef. I didn't know we're gonna have a chef. So learning also now from food and everything, but advancing and adjusting. And I think that's the way. Sometimes I was telling people, it's not about balanced life, it's about adjusting, like tuning in. So every time we are tuning, a little bit of everything. So we adjust. And when you adjust, you transform. So that's the beauty of it.
Yeah, I agree. Those adjustments can be micro, right? They don't have to be these macro adjustments. You don't have to turn the knob the entire way.
You know, when you're doing in the drums, right? A little bit. That's it. It's just a little bit, but try to find it where and adjust.
Shifting focus to your experience on the EO Global Board. I'm really curious about, a lot of entrepreneurs are, until you hit a certain scale, you're kind of geographically locked. And I don't mean that in a mean way or a bad way, but you have limited experience because you only experience X surroundings, right? And what I've heard from people who have been on the EO Global Board is that you're given this new perspective that changes your outlook on the way you do anything, because you're looking at, how they're doing things over in this country and how they're doing things in this city and all these different things. And you're taking all of that wealth of knowledge into everything that you do. Is that similar to your experience?
Yes, I can say yes. For me, something that gave me a lot, and it was something from the beginning. I look at, in 2005, I was doing houses here. In my mind, it was Monterrey, right? 2012, I do the business of testing lab materials, and it was Monterrey. Later on, in that business, I opened a little bit to all Mexico. But that was it. In my mind, I couldn't go to other place. So EO, first I said, well, if I'm not a CEO or not a director of an international company, when I'm gonna have the opportunity to travel, or when I'm gonna have the opportunity to know the world that is a different way. So when I start looking at EO, that if you give to the community, one of the things that you give to yourself, it was traveling. And I said, okay, traveling and meeting people. Wow, two things that I love. And I said, that's interesting. Let me take that path. So it was very interesting to do that, because learning, every time I would become a leader, they said, okay, now we're gonna do this app to put all the information. And let's start it from zero, Dropbox, in that moment. Oh, I didn't have Dropbox in my company. So I took it and I put it in my company. So I always believe I was like a little learning something that was happening in other countries, more evolved than here, to get information and put it back in my business, and also to myself. Later on, what happened, it was not about continue getting business information to put it back here, but it was more like understanding the culture. Why the Latinos, we are like this. Why the Germans are like that. Why the Europeans. And learning in that, wow, I became in love for that, because I learned a lot from them. And I learned a lot of why the regions or the countries are in that way. Right? And you start understanding why and what we do need to do as Latinos, or why all Latin America is like that. And you see the culture, right? And you see, okay, everybody's happy, everybody is like that, but we do it al ratito, in a little place. And everybody, when you have a German, they say, hey, man, it's for tomorrow. And then you start understanding why we don't think like that, or yes. So I think being in a global board with people from all around different places, it was something I could never do in my business, right? So it was also very interesting to be there and try to raise our hand to say, hey man, we as a Latin America, as a community, we also have a voice in EO, right? So we want to be here to hear from us, because maybe Canada, United States, Europe, they can be very similar in the way of doing business, a lot of things. But Africa, I met one of my best friends that we made there, Jamie. He's from Kenya. And when we got connected in one plane in Philippines, we become very good friends. And we were talking and say, hey man, EO is also Africa and it's also Latin America. So I think being there and expose and and raise our hand as a Latinos or people from Africa, and in the same table, everybody eating and learning that everybody, we are humans and we are great. It doesn't matter where you are, and that why that people didn't see what we were struggling, and we told, hey man, not everything is like that. And that happened in pandemic. We were there, and everybody said, no man, we are not gonna help anyone. Why not? Because not, hey man, Latin America, Africa, everyone, we need help, man. We don't have a country like the United States that says, hey, if you have an entrepreneur, we're going to give you millions of dollars. We don't have that, man. We are struggling. So putting that in the table, I find out that people always, you need to listen to every voice around everywhere you are. In every room, everybody has a different voice because they are living different things. And that thing was very interesting to be in the global board and we being that one voice and to listen to the other voices from other places. I think that was very, very interesting.
It sounds like an extremely symbiotic relationship, right? It's like you receive these ideas, these unique ideas that you can implement on your own, but you also get to give and share and influence or at least educate other people on things that they might not know about your region, whatever the case.
Yeah, that's sometimes I say it sounds very selfish, but at the end it's not selfish because if I know, I can transfer it. Right? I can explain it to somebody else. So sometimes it looks like very selfish to do that, but at the end, it was a lot of time, man. It was like nothing comes for free in life, right? It's always your time and where you're going to put it. For me, it was a sacrifice for my family and for my business. And my business was not doing very well when I was traveling 1 month yes and 1 month no and doing like, I don't know, maybe 20 hours a week to EO. It was a lot of my time. The only thing that I learned is, okay, one thing, Hugo. Take it easy. What is your flow now? You can move 10 pieces, 10 projects in a year. That's it. In the first 6 months, I got frustrated because I was used to move like 20 to 30 projects. When I get there, my first 6 months, I was struggling in my projects until I understand. I said, okay, now I get it. I put in 20 hours or a lot of hours on EO, so I need to take out things in other projects. When I understand it after 6 months of frustration, I said, okay, now how are you going to manage my agenda, my family, and your regrets also, right? Like say, no, okay, I'm not seeing my kids. Oh, my kids want this in the school and I'm not there. His birthday. And then you start struggling with yourself. But at the end, you were knowing that you were learning something. You were becoming better. And that at the end, you were going to affect your house, right? Like Burning Man, going to Burning Man also was the same. That week, the first time I went, like my wife said to me, it's the first time I know what is a widow. Because now it was what I'm going to do if something happens. So I think it looks like you're losing something, but you're winning a lot. But you need to be very aware and and be very responsible with yourself, not to say things, very bad things about you're using your time on that. But at the end, it was a very good time use.
Yeah, you said in there that nothing in life comes for free, and obviously that's true because everything is an opportunity cost for something else, right? I'm curious how you decide to. How do you decide to place value on one thing over another? Is there a process that you have?
I don't know, man. Sometimes I only go for my guts and I say, okay, I like this, and I go. So I have been make a lot of mistakes in that way, right? Sometimes a lot of decisions is not because I don't want to stop, right? Sometimes I believe I need to say no more. I have been writing in my first time, this is the 3rd year, that every year that I put less is more. And it looks like I don't understand that, man. I put it and I continue creating things. And I don't know if that is the energy. Like maybe 6 months ago, I was talking with a friend and I said, when you want to stop, you also need to make a plan. And if you want to stop, it's not going to be from one day to another. You need to do it severally. So everything is a plan. So sometimes a lot of things is like, okay, let's go and do it. And sometimes I said, no, I don't want to do that. But I think that things are less. It's always like, hey, I have an idea, let's do it. And about time with my family right now, after EO, I finished. And I said, okay, I already traveled for the last years. I thought this year, the first year, I was going to travel less, but I didn't travel the less enough. I was traveling a lot. This year, I always said I'm going to take more with my family. Now the thing that happened, that now my girls are 15 and 13. So I have a bride very, very low, because now they're going to be, when they're 20s, 18, they're going to be very short, right? Mm-hmm. So I need to do something more with them right now. But also in EO, I find great friends that they travel with their families and kids from 28, 30, and I see how they do it, and I also learn from them. And I said, so it doesn't matter. They're going to be there. I'm going to be there. We're going to continue. So I don't know, man. It depends. If something get passion, I go for it.
Love it. Did you ever travel with your family? Did you bring your family on any trips?
Every year. Every year I went to, like, in the global board every June, it was in a different country. The first year was Canada, and the next year was Europe, and the next year was also Europe. So those 3 years we traveled together. And before that, we used to go in the summers to places, all the four of us together. I think that's something. This year, we didn't travel and we separated. I went to Europe by myself. My wife went with my daughter to a boat trip, and then they went to a camp. And something beautiful happened, because we were one Sunday talking, the four of us, and we said, hey, we didn't like what happened this summer. No, next summer is not going to happen this again. So it was very nice that everybody was aligned on that topic.
Yeah, definitely. And you don't know what you don't know, right?
Yeah, man. But when it was a good feeling that we always feel the same thing, that it was very nice to be traveling the four of us together. That was very nice.
It's cool that it afforded you that opportunity, right? Like, to take your family on all these different things and to experience these things with your family, and not limit, you're not allowed to bring your family or whatever, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a blessing, man. And I'm very blessed on that.
I don't remember if it was before we started recording or after, but at some point tonight you mentioned you have some land not far from here, where we are right now in Chupique, and the plan is to build cabins on that.
Yeah, that's a project that land I bought it in 2003. And first in 2019, I started doing a project that I said, okay, I'm going to do like, there are places for retreat, for companies, or for wellness. And I remember, like, in Riviera Maya, Tulum, and all those places, they were very popular, those kinds of retreats. And I said, let's do something there. So I started cleaning the space. So right now I have already cleaned it. And then I said, okay, let's start a project. But then another business started consuming me resources of money. So I have not doing it. But I said, okay, I'm going to do it very slow. And it was very interesting. Like 2 days ago on Monday, we went to Cuatro Ciénegas, to another place, and we met a guy who he came in pandemic from Germany with his wife. And he's from Mexico, his wife is from Germany. And he went to a place 20 minutes from a little town, no electricity, no nothing. And he started creating a 100% sustainable, I don't know how to say it in English, sustainable house.
Sustainable, yeah.
And so they have electricity, water, and everything by themselves. And it was very interesting, the explanation that they gave us. And I said, oh, maybe I can add that to that cabin. So it was very interesting.
Mm-hmm. So that's the plan.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
Little by little. He has been doing it for 4 years. I said, okay. So one thing by another. Everything like little goals.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. One step in front of the other.
Yeah, that's right.
What, I mean, so we've talked about a lot of the different things that you're doing. What's next? What's next for you? What are you working on next? What's the next idea that's kind of running around your mind?
Just ideas in different things. Like in my business, I want to really in March. I'm working these 6 months with my directors just to get out of the business. I believe it's time to get out of that business. And I will continue in the music, in the cabins, to try to put that project on March, and so I can continue on that. And in my personal, I always want to make like a speaker. I just want to share what I learned in a good way. So like 1 month ago, I went to take a course of public speaking, and I believe that as a brand, as a project, also to see if I can travel with that, continue traveling the world, but in a different way. And more than money is to share, right? Something that to give, because I always believe that when you tell a story, maybe somebody identifies something in your story, connect the dots in their brain, and they change it. That's why I believe somebody like me, that I cannot read books, but I can listen. So I said, the only way I can do it, maybe I will write a book so for the people that write it, but it's more like to give something, to let something write, to give a speech, something that they somebody can change or can help it to change in something.
I hope you pursue that. I would strongly
We're gonna do it,
that.
man.
Yeah, you will. I know you will. I know in this conversation alone, I've done exactly what you're talking about, is made some connections and dots in my own mind. So please do that.
Oh, we're gonna do it.
Yeah. What does success? What is the meaning of success for you?
I think that success is when, for me, is try to do something. Just try to do it, man. I always said that success is when you are doing something, whatever you want, just do it, right? Like, oh, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna call my dad. Call it. That's success, man. You do it. You finish. Because sometimes we start in the paper only, and we don't do it. So for me, success is when you are doing it, something, go. Sometimes it's gonna be good. Sometimes if you go for money, it's another way, right? But you can be successful in another things, just doing it. Like calling your mom is doing it. Giving a hug to your daughter is do it. I never give a hug to my daughter. Why? For me, success is doing what you say you're gonna do and do it. That's the way.
Man, this has been an incredible conversation.
Oh, thank you, man.
Like, really awesome. Thank you.
Thank you for the invitation. It has been lovely, both of you guys.
Yeah, thank you for coming up, and thank you for sharing your perspective. And
thank you, my friend.